Hi there. Welcome back to Buckeye Bigfoot. Now, if you've been here before, you know how this goes. People send me emails telling me what they saw or experienced. Then they put it down in words as best as they can, and I read it to you. Now, tonight's story is from a man in Tennessee who had something letting him know that it was out there. So saddle up, and let's get our journey into Sasquatch Valley started. And if you're inclined, at the end of this video, I've got a little bit of chit-chat for you, and I'm going to answer some questions I've seen going around in the comments. But right now, grab your snackage, saddle up. The horses are pawing the ground out there. They're ready to go. And you know those Sasquatches are out there waiting for us in the dark, down in Sasquatch Valley. Let's go. I've lived in the same little patch of Tennessee my whole life, down in a holler where the land is as rocky as it is green. My wife and I have a modest spread, a few goats, a good garden, and chickens enough to keep us in eggs and Sunday suppers. Now, anyone that keeps chickens knows you've got to stay after it. Hawks will swoop down in the day, and foxes and coons will come prowling around at night. Through the years, I've lost my fair share of chickens, but I've also gotten pretty good at keeping critters out. This was late summer when all of this went down. The nights were still hot, but the days had just started to really shorten up, enough that you noticed. That night, I went to bed with the windows open. It was the kind of air where you can hear everything, crickets, whippoorwills, and the soft clucking of the hens settling down into their coops. I must have been asleep for a couple of hours when I heard the dogs going crazy. Now, I've got two good mutts. They're good dogs. Both have good noses and good ears. When they go to barking in the middle of the night, you know I pay attention. I rolled out of bed, pulled on my boots, and grabbed the flashlight I leave sitting by the back door. I didn't bother with the shotgun at first. Normally don't need to. I figured it was just a fox or maybe a raccoon trying its luck. The dogs were out on the porch, as they often are on nice nights. But this night, they were stiff as boards, their hackles up, growling like they meant some mean business. That told me right away this might not just be some possum or raccoon sneaking through the yard. I stepped off the porch, the beam of my flashlight cutting through the dark, and I aimed it toward the coop. I heard the hens rustling and clucking. They were unsettled. Then I heard it. I heard a low growl, and I don't mean one from my dogs. This came from by the coop. I froze right where I stood. This wasn't a growl like I've ever heard before. It was a rumble with some bass to it, and it traveled. At the same time, I heard the wire on the chicken coop rattle and ping like something let go of it. Then my dogs went to howling, teeth bared, but not one of them would step off the porch with me. I really took note of that then. That told me something. I raised the flashlight higher, my throat dry. "Who's out there?" I hollered. Most times I can scare off almost any critter out there by just yelling. Worst case scenario. It was a black bear that had wandered down from the mountains. And that was fine. I could take that on too. But all I got was silence, thick as the night air around me. Then came the sound of heavy footsteps somewhere behind the coop. Heavy, slow. This wasn't the patter of paws, nor the crunch of hooves. These were steps, each one long enough apart that my stomach started to turn a little bit cold. I didn't know anything that walked quite like that. I swept the light toward the noise and caught a glimpse of something moving just past the reach of the beam. It wasn't hunched over like some man sneaking around, and it sure was not on four legs. It was upright, shoulders broad as a doorframe, and moving smooth and steady. The chickens were now raising Cain inside that coop, wings flapping like the devil himself had come for 'em. And maybe he had. I swallowed hard and backed up a step. This time, I went in and reached for the shotgun that was just propped inside the kitchen door. When I stepped back out, I noticed the yard was suddenly quiet. Too quiet. The dogs had gone from barking to whining, then shaking with tails tucked under and hiding at the far end of the porch behind our porch chairs. They wouldn't even look at me when I talked to them. Forget the coop. I stepped down off the porch, my flashlight beam shaken just a bit. Walked to the side of the coop. The ground there is mostly dirt thanks to the chickens, and it was still soft from the rain the day before. I could see where something had walked. Big prints, barefoot. Each step pressed down so deep that I could see the outline of each toe. I've hunted my whole life. I've tracked bear, coyotes, even chased down the odd stray cow for neighbors. I know prints when I see them, and these weren't like anything that I had ever laid eyes on. Bigger than my hand splayed out, and wider, too. I followed the trail just a few steps from the coop when I heard something that stopped me dead to rights. A very loud knock, then a rattle of the wood, and more banging than a knock. It was on the side of my barn, approximately 90 feet from where I stood. This was slow and deliberate noise, like it was letting me know exactly where it was, warning me. Maybe it was saying, "Come on, old man, chase me if you dare." I raised the shotgun, my heart hammering. The beam of my light caught just the edge of the barn wall. And then there was movement. I shifted the light. It stepped out. Lord help me, it stepped right out into my flashlight's light. Tall, taller than the roof line on the edge of my roof by a good couple feet. Covered in hair dark as used motor oil, and it was hanging real long in some places, yet patchy in others like it had been rubbing against trees. Its chest was wide, and its arms hung darn near to its knees. And those eyes, they were yellow in the light. I don't mean that they glowed, they just reflected the light like any other animal's. It stared at me. It just stood there, not moving, just breathing heavy enough I could see its chest rise and fall in the light. It was really that big. It was so big, my shotgun felt small in my hands. I didn't pull the trigger. I don't know if it was fear or just plain common sense, but I knew right then and there, this wasn't something you just shot at, like some fox stealing your chickens. We stood there for a long minute, man and beast, neither one moving. Then, as if it had made up its mind, it turned slowly, ducked its head under the barn eave, and walked off into the tree line. There was no hurry, no fear. Apparently, I was no threat to it, shotgun or not. I was shaken. I had seen something I never believed existed, but I couldn't deny it. I went inside, and I took the dogs into the laundry room for the night. I about had to pick them up. They weren't moving on their own. But you know, they didn't make a sound all night. That's real unusual for them. The chickens also quieted down after a while. But me, I didn't sleep a wink. I sat up at the kitchen table, shotgun ready on the table, ready to go. I was listening to every creak and groan of the house, every switch of blade outside of grass that moved. I had my ears on it. Come morning, I walked out to look again. Yep, the prints were still there, clear as day, leading from the coop over to the barn, and then I followed them as they trailed off into the woods. I measured one with a tape, 16 inches long, longer than my boot. I patched up the coop tighter than a drum that day. It was like Fort Knox for chickens, so I thought. After that, lots of nights I woke up thinking I heard something outside, I'd really gotten paranoid. I'd get up and go check it, but nothing was there. No more chickens went missing for a while. Come October, we started to have the cool nights. I was still keeping the dogs inside. My wife didn't like that any, but I didn't want them out there at night. If I could have brought the chickens and the goats in, I would have. One morning I went, and part of the wire was peeled back on the coop. It was like someone had taken a can opener to it. Something had stepped in, and it had gotten the chickens in their nest house. There were feathers and blood everywhere, and not an egg to be found either. Did I hear any of that going on through the night? No. And my dogs didn't make a sound either. And that was the thing I started to notice. Whenever that thing was near, my dogs never made a sound. I patched the coop up again. I reinforced it this time and put an outer fence about 2 feet away all the way around the coop, and I electrified it. Wasn't 2 weeks later, I lost 4 more chickens. I went out and I found that a huge log was weighing down the electrified fence wires. It was just a 4-foot fence with wires around. That log had been strategically dropped across the fence so it could walk right over it. I would have liked to have seen that, figuring out it was an electrified fence. I was hardly sleeping most nights, and I worried over maybe we should get rid of the animals that we still had. One night, right before bedtime, I heard the goats out there carrying on. I don't second-guess it anymore. When I start out of the gate with the shotgun from the house. I'm almost to the pen when I hear one goat bleating wildly. Then it stops. I got to the goat pen to find I was down a goat. I heard heavy footsteps breaking off into the woods. The lone remaining goat was standing in the corner of the pen, facing away. I guess it couldn't bear to see what was happening. I was mad as blazes, but I wasn't going out in the dark after it. That next month I got the goat rehomed, and we began to whittle the chickens down until there were literally none by January. A few times I know the beast has come looking for its late-night dinner, but there's none to be had out there anymore. I keep my dogs in at night now, permanently. I've told my neighbors what was going on. Only one took me serious, and she lives alone, but she's a smart girl. She's had some things happen over there, and she's heard things in the night. She knew enough to believe. Now, it's been some time, and I don't really hear it out there at night anymore. Nothing's going missing that I know of. I have seen a few prints from time to time, and they are alarmingly close to the house sometimes. But nothing goes missing. I keep my dogs in at night, and that's just how it is. Wife doesn't like it, like I said, but I won't give in. It's mostly quiet out there, but I really watch my dogs. If we're out there and they go quiet, I see their ears pinned back to their head and they're looking off toward the trees. I get a cold chill in my gut, and wherever we are, we head for home. And I always keep my shotgun close, because I know it's still out there. You know, I can't imagine standing out there in the dark knowing that one of those creatures really wasn't too far away. And this sender didn't give me a name to use. Not that it matters. It was a good story nonetheless. Thank you for sending it in. And if you've had an encounter, you can send it in to me at contact@buckeyebigfoot.com. Now, I mentioned I had some chit-chat for you on the back end of this video, and I do. It's nothing serious, just people have had a lot of questions about why there are certain videos that seem to be duplicated. A lot of you have noticed there's another version of Buckeye Bigfoot that keeps showing up in your YouTube feed and suggestions. It's the one that has the red background logo with a Bigfoot walking in front of a moon. Now, you probably noticed that it seems to duplicate the videos that I put out. So here's the deal. As many of you know, I've started an actual podcast for this channel. There's a whole lot of people that only listen to podcasts and never use YouTube. So Buckeye Bigfoot is all new to them. It's a whole new audience. They are not familiar with us at all. But here's what happens. When I upload a podcast, it also sends out all over. It sends it to Apple Music. It sends it to Amazon Music. It sends it to iHeartRadio, Spotify. And it also uploads it on YouTube as a podcast. There are actual podcast tabs on YouTube. It's a little crazy and it's a little messy to explain. Heck, I'm still learning the ropes on this. Just know if you see that little red square background and not a regular thumbnail with wording to tell you about the story, it's the podcast version. There's not going to be an actual video. So what's the difference, you're asking? Well, think of YouTube as a bit like watching television, and podcasts are a bit more like radio. You can listen to podcasts more easily in your car or on the go with your phone than you can actual YouTube videos. Podcasts don't take up all the Wi-Fi and the data and all that other stuff. And some of you had mentioned in the recent comments that you missed all the normal chit-chat on the front and the back end of the videos. And that's because, well, I'm just trying out some different formats. Not just because of the podcast, just, it just has me thinking, can I do this better? I mean, I'm like anybody. After a while, it's kind of nice to put a fresh coat of paint on a room and maybe rearrange the furniture a bit, see if something works better. And that's all. That's all I'm doing. And with podcasts, you tend to stay less personal, less chit-chat. On YouTube, there's usually more of a personal connection. So I'm just rearranging the furniture around here and looking for some different paint colors that might work. That's all. But I really do thank you for the feedback. Anyway, just bear with me while I cut my teeth on all of this. I'm learning with this channel because in just a couple of weeks, I'll be launching the other channel, Under a Dark Moon. It's going to be on YouTube, on YouTube and podcast format both. It's not a Bigfoot channel, although he might make a cameo appearance from time to time. It's just going to be a story channel, and we're going to tell all kinds of stories. Think ghosts, paranormal, scary things, weird things, stuff that might have been on the Twilight Zone years ago, or maybe Creep Show. It's just going to be different all the time. You know why? Because you never know what you'll run into under a dark moon. All right, that's it for this week, my Sasquatch, at least until this coming Friday. And that was a whole lot of chit-chat. I am sorry, but I know a lot of you had some questions. Thank you for listening and staying with me to the end. It's always better with your company. And until we meet up again, please always remember, absence of proof is not proof of absence. Thanks for listening.